I have built a lot of Typal decks in my day. Vampires, elementals, sea monsters, clowns, spiders. I'm afraid of spiders. I don't know why I did that. Fairies, Eldrazi. Don't play that one a lot. And while they're not always the best decks, boy, they sure are decks. So I thought with Lorwyn Eclipse having just released and that being a huge set for a lot of different creature types, I thought I'd give you a quick run through of how I build my Typal decks, and we'll build a Typal deck for this set together. Now, if you've been hearing the term Typal thrown around a lot but aren't really sure what it means, I got you, homie. So Typal decks, the main mechanic of a Typal deck surrounds the creature type. In a Typal deck, most of the creatures, if not all of the creatures in the deck, will share a creature type, and a lot of the combos and the mechanics will center around that shared creature type. You might have heard this be called a tribal deck before. In early Magic, cards would say like a tribal sorcery or tribal summon on it. That term's not used anymore. Now you'll hear Typal, which is a combination of tribal and creature type. So Typal, or you'll hear kindred, and you'll see on some of the Lorwyn cards from this set, it says kindred sorcery, kindred instant, and that's the same thing as Typal. So the first step, of course, is to pick which creature type you want to build. In Lorwyn Eclipse, there are a lot of different creature types supported in this set, including elves, merfolk, treefolk, goblins, elementals, giants, and all of these types have a ton of card support in other different sets as well. Elves, merfolk, and goblin especially have been getting creature cards in tons and tons of sets, so you have a lot of options if you pick those ones. If you want to go something a little more challenging, maybe tree folk or oof or something with less card support might be a fun challenge to try and build. You likely will use a lot of shapeshifters to fill in all of your creature spots, but that could be fun as well. And Lorwyn Eclipse has a lot of changelings and shapeshifters in a lot of different colors. So for this one, I've decided to go with merfolk, which is in white and blue this time because I have never owned a merfolk deck, and I feel like every Magic the Gathering player should have one or play one at least once. Now I'm going to be showing you how I do it, and I mostly build decks from my own card collection. This is not the only way, and there are tons of other things you can do to build your deck. This is not a definitive guide to building Typal decks. This is just what works for me. If this is your first time building a Typal deck or any type of deck and you're not really sure where to start, upgrading a precon is a great way to get your feet wet and get a little bit of a taste for deck building without being thrown in the deep end. So there are two commander decks that came out with Lorwyn Eclipse, and this Dance of the Elements one is an elemental Typal deck with 5-color Ashling at the helm. And there's another card that the name is escaping me right now, but it's another 5-color card that you can run that as your commander as well if you want to. And then you can upgrade this, take cards out, put cards in as you see fit, add things from other sets, but this is a great base. I've upgraded precons a few times in my past to create good Typal decks. One of them, like right here, literally, this is the Wilds of Eldraine Fairies deck, which I have added some cards to. Starting with a precon is a great idea, and I'm actually giving 2 precons away. You can check out the link in the description to find out how you could win these 2 precons, but more about that later. So how I start once I've picked which type I want to build is I just start pulling cards like crazy from my collection. So there are a few things you want to be looking for when you are pulling cards, including anything with that creature type, so anything with a creature type merfolk, anything that cares about creature type, or cares about your specific creature type, cards that are any creature type, or creatures that are any creature type. In case you don't have enough like solid merfolk cards to fill up all of your creature spots in your commander deck, these changelings can fill in those spots so that you still have a solid amount of creatures. And some changelings can also add some good buffs and have some good value for your deck. In addition to pulling things that are creature type specific, you also want good value in your colors. So like I have an Edgar Markov Vampires deck, and one of the cards I run in it is Dark Confidant, which is not a vampire, but it's good for card draw. So even though it doesn't fit the creature type, it still gives me good value in my deck, so I include it. So in this case, other cards in blue and in white that maybe aren't merfolk, but give me card draw or buff my creatures or have removal or something, those are also good to include. And now we're just pulling cards like crazy. It doesn't matter if these cards are going in the deck or not. These are all just the options that we're gonna build with later. So if you end up with a stack on your desk like this tall, It's definitely more than 100 cards. That's not a problem. This is just all of our options at this point, and we're gonna whittle down from there. After you have all of those, you want your traditional commander staples. Things like removal, ramp, draw, and defense. So things that'll draw you cards, things to remove other creatures and other permanents that are annoying you, things to get lands out on the field, things that help your deck function no matter what your theme is. In blue, I hope to have a lot of draw and a lot of removal in the forms of like counter spells and like bouncing things back to hand. White also gives me access to things like Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile, which are removal spells. And blue doesn't have a ton of mass removal or like board wipe spells, but white does. So I'll do things like Farewell and Austere Command, things in white that will help me get the board state in my favor when if things, God forbid, things don't go my way. Now, I like to build from the cards I have, so I don't necessarily do a lot of other research, but if you like to buy cards for your deck right away, or if you're building your deck online to buy the deck list later, this would be a good time to go and do research on what cards go well with your creature type or with the mechanics that are associated with your creature type. I use EDH Rec a lot. You can look up specific commanders and see what cards people are playing with it. It uses all the deck lists on the site to show you like 45% of people who play this commander include this card. So it's lots of good information on what other people are playing, and then you can decide if you want that in your deck as well. Scryfall and other just card database websites are also good for finding cards that are in your creature type. So you can just search the entire card base for merfolk, scroll through and pick out your favorites, write them down, and then add them to your deck list on paper or on whatever website you're using to build your decks. I usually try and work with the cards I have first, and then if I play the deck a few times and I find it's not really working, then I'll go to EDH Rec or something and see how I can upgrade it, and maybe I'll spend a little money to get those upgrades to get my deck up to the next level. EDH Rec is also really helpful for finding synergies you wouldn't really expect. I'm actually going to use some suggestions from my friends over at GirlPods who posted about some things that go well specifically with Sig, who will be my commander, things like Enduring Curiosity and other card draw things that trigger when something does combat damage. And since Sig is unblockable, he's going to be doing a lot of combat damage, so that'll get me a lot of card draw, which gets me to the cards and the creatures I want more. So I'm definitely going to be putting some of those in if I have them in my collection. All that out of the way now, I'm going to go through all of the cards I pulled for Lorwyn Eclipse. I also have my bulk blue and white cards sitting here. I'm going to pull out everything I think I'm going to use for this deck. After I've got everything pulled, we'll go into how I like to whittle down everything and actually build the deck. Now that I have all my cards picked out, I am going to split them up into piles based first on the spell type. So like I'll have a pile of creatures here, non-creature spells, artifacts over here, and then lands. Planeswalkers if there are any of those. And then I'm going to go back and go through each of the piles one by one and sort them into piles by their mana cost. So I'm going to do that really quick. Alright, once I have my creatures laid out in messy piles by their mana cost, I'm going to go through each of these piles individually and pick the cards that I like the best or that I think will do the best in this deck. Normally, for my creature decks, I try to have around 30, but right now I'm not looking at the number so much as I'm just looking at each of the cards individually, seeing what has good mechanics and good abilities that work with other cards. And then I'm just pulling out, this is just a first run through, pulling out the things that aren't really working or I don't think are strong enough to be in the deck. Now the cards that aren't getting put out there immediately, I'm still holding on to in a maybe pile. If I don't have enough creatures, I will come back to this pile and add some things back in. So these aren't going back into the bulk yet, just holding on to them over here. Okay, so going through the first time, I only have 22 creatures. That is way too low. So I'm going to go back through with my maybes and add in to fill in the gaps that I'm missing. have 31 creatures, and that's a number I'm pretty happy with for now. So I'm gonna come over to this sticky note that I use. You can see I've built a few decks with it before. This is how I just count how many cards of each type. So creatures, spells, artifacts, planeswalkers, lands, and then the commander. There's a 2 here because I built a partner deck, but otherwise it's all 1s. And I'm going to draw a line here and then put in 31 creatures. And then I'm going to repeat this process for each other type of card that's going to be in this deck. And then at the end, we'll total up and see if I'm over, if I'm under, and then we can make more cuts from there. Once I've gone through all of the different spell types, I usually have more than 100, but sometimes I have less than 100. So then it's time to lay out all the cards, usually other than the lands. Lands I usually keep pretty steady at 35 or 36, and then I'll edit after I've played the deck a few times. I'll lay out all the other cards in that same arrangement I had before by mana value. I'll go through it a final time or two and then whittle down to 100, or I'll take those cards from the maybe pile and I'll add until I get back up to 100. If there are cards that I want that maybe I saw on EDH Rec or on Scryfall that I don't have yet, I'll take those blank tokens that sometimes come in your magic packs and I'll write the name of the card on it, or I'll put a sticky note on another card, and then I can have it in my laid out arrangement of cards, because I like to be able to see the cards and move them around, so that personally works for me. And then once I've got it down to 100, I put it all together, I throw it in some sleeves, and then I'm ready to test it at the next commander night. And that's usually not the end of the deck building process there. Like, the main building of the deck is done, yes, but I'll play it a few times and see what works and what doesn't work. If I notice I'm running into the same problem over and over, like I'm just not getting the card draw I needed, I'm running low on lands, I have too many lands, then I'll bring the deck back, take the cards and lay them out again, and then address those issues. And I'm always changing my decks all the time. There are only a couple decks that I don't really touch anymore, so this deck list will go through a ton of different iterations before I either find something that works and I leave it that way, or I take it apart and it turns into a different deck, because I am a deck making and destroying fiend and nothing stays together for very long. If that's my sin, so be it. I could be a lot worse, and I think you guys should be grateful that this is my biggest problem right now. So anyway, that is how I build a Typal deck. This is not the definitive way to do it. This is just how I do it, and it works for me. Hopefully it helps you get inspired to get started with building a Typal deck out of your Lorwyn Eclipsed pulls. You've been sitting here so nicely all this time to hear about I am giving away 2 commander decks to 2 lucky people. You can find the link over to the Instagram post about it in the description. I haven't settled on a time limit on how long you have to enter quite yet, but it'll involve going over to that Instagram post, liking, commenting, sharing on your story, and then after the undisclosed time passes that I will determine after I'm done recording this, I will pick a couple winners and these will be sent out to you, and then once they're in your hands, you can either upgrade them or keep them the same, or you can eat them if you want. That they're your decks now. Thank you for listening to me yap about the type of deck I play the most often, and I hope this was helpful to you. Most importantly, I hope you are enjoying the Lorwyn Eclipsed set. I definitely am, so let me know down in the comments what decks you're going to make with this set. If you're not going to make a deck, just tell me what your best pulls are, because I love seeing what other people pull. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.